Hey team, and welcome to the second of my class guides and the first of my 5-minute guides. I decided I didn't like the format of the first guide I did, so I wanted to try something more fast-paced and more easily consumable. So with that housekeeping stuff out of the way, let's get into this because I don't have much time and it's already ticking away. Thank God I picked Frost for this first one, huh? Alright, so Frost DK. The more simple cousin of Unholy is the more fast-paced dual-wielding Reaver who utilizes Frost magic and fast melee attacks to absolutely tear through anything in its path. It revolves around the talent Breath of Sindragosa in its current iteration, building up resources and cooldowns, and popping them all in conjunction with this is how Frost does its damage. Let's take a quick look at the talent builds for Frost. As you can see, they look largely similar for both Mythic Plus and for Raid, the only difference usually being what you take in the utility row. Generally, it's Wraithwalk for raids, Deathpack for dungeons. Alright, let's look at the rotations for these talent setups. Frost is pretty unique in that its single target and AoE rotations are very similar, probably why its talent setups are the same for both. The general idea with Frost is the same as Unholy. Build resources and spend them without overcapping on anything, runes or runic power. There is one key difference here though, Breath of Sindragosa, our big cooldown which will suck runic power from us until we run out. The entire spec revolves around using this and using it well. As a result, we sort of have an in and out of breath rotation. While outside of breath and waiting for it to come up, we want to play as usual, generating runic power with Obliterate, spending it on Frost Strike only to avoid overcapping, and using our Rime procs on Howling Blast. Again, very similar for AoE, the only difference being that we use Remorseless Winter on cooldown with more than 3 mobs present. Lastly, for our basic out of breath rotation, we want to make sure we're using Pillar of Frost as close to cooldown as possible, and, utilizing the strength buff it gives us, popping Chains of Ice and Frostworm's Fury as close to the end as possible. From my experience, Chains of Ice lines up pretty nicely. Alrighty, time is getting short so we gotta zoom here. Okay, our opener in Breath of Sindragosa rotation. On pull, we want to Obliterate 3 times, spending our Rime procs if we get them, wait until we have 3 runes back up, pop our Empower rune weapon, Pillar of Frost, and the Big Breath. While this is up, we enter a different phase and our rotation changes slightly. During this, Breath of Sindragosa phase, our top priority becomes keeping it alive by generating as much runic power as possible. It's like a game of tag but with the start of your runic power bar, and let me tell you, this is one of the most stress-inducing things in the game, but it can be really satisfying if you do it right. Pretty much, while that thing is up, avoid that Frost Strike button like it's your next assignment. Only Obliterates and Rime proc Howling Blast till that thing ends. Right, that's the rotation and opener covered, and since this one's really short, I can have a quick chat about the defensives and utility of DK. This stuff applies to Unholy and Blood as well, and it's really good to know if you're new. So as a DK, we have access to some very powerful defensive capability and utility through Icebound Fortitude, Anti-Magic Shell, and Death's Advance. And if used right, this stuff is OP in the Battle of Dazar'alor. Let me give you guys some examples of these defensives and what they can do for you in the raid. Tantrum on Grong, that's nature damage. So if you pop AMS, you are pretty much immortal to even a 4-stack. Stacking Dot in Downstairs Rusticon phase, that's also magic damage, so if you pop AMS, you'll stop getting stacks and you can even drop them. The Rings of Peace and Fire Traps on Jade Fire Masters both count as knockbacks, so if you pop Death's Advance, you will not be affected by the movement portions of these abilities. A warning though, I still do recommend popping AMS and even Icebound if you plan on tanking these traps because that debuff gets pretty nasty. And just a general tip, more for dungeons, Death Grip is a really powerful ability for repositioning casters and interrupting them. Make sure you use it as much as you can to help out that super nice tank of yours. The last thing I'll mention for DK's wonderful defensive capability is that Icebound is also a stun break. It can be used to negate stuns or even remove them while you're in them. I think the message I'm trying to get at with this is that you really want to read your tooltips and make sure the ability does what you think it does. I know when I first read Death's Advance, I went, what is this, 30% movement speed buff? That's crap. Now I know what it does, I don't say that anymore. Death's Advance OP. Anyway guys, that has been the Frost DK. It's a simple spec, but if you enjoy the rush of trying to stop that runic power bar from fully draining, it can be a really fun spec for you. Just be aware that you have to be on the boss throughout the duration of that breath, or that sucker is going to drop faster than a priest in Coin Shower. Thank you guys so much for listening, thank you guys so much for watching. There will be many more of these 5-minute guides. I think I really enjoy this format a lot more, and I'll probably stick to it for all the other specs, healer and DPS in the game. So if you want to find out more or ask me a question, I'm live every night from 7 PM except Sundays on my Twitch channel, Jactus. I'll leave a link in the description below. I hope you enjoyed. I'll see you again.